So let's take a look at our Let's Make a Deal project. This comes from a game show that was called Let's Make a Deal. It had lots of different little featured games on it, and one of them was a choice that a contestant had to choose from 3 doors. Now the prize was located behind one of the doors and the other 2 were empty. Now this is when it differs in this kind of mathematical model a little bit from the game show itself, but this is what makes it interesting. So suppose that after making a choice of one of the doors, the host congratulates you for not choosing a door without a prize. And that door is opened, revealing that there is no prize there. Then the host gives you another choice. You can stay with your original choice, or you can switch to the other door that was not opened. There's 3 doors. You chose one of them. The host opened another one to reveal that the prize was not behind that door. And now you've got a choice. Stay with your original choice or change to the other door. Now we're going to do this with modeling. We're actually going to perform a simulation. And we're going to do this using a website. So I'm going to load that now. So here's our simulation. It allows us to play this game, and it allows us to play it by exactly the way you'd expect. So here's 3 doors, and I'm going to click on one of them. So I'm going to click on the first door. And the host opened the second door to reveal some sort of goat-like animal, maybe an ibex, I don't know. And I'm now given the choice of staying with my first choice or switching to the other door. So let me say I stay. Oh, I lost in that case, so I'm going to play again. Again, I'm going to choose the first door. Again, I'm going to stay, and again, I lost. Well, let's play again. I'm tired of the first door. Let's choose the second door, and this time I'm going to switch. My goodness, I've won in that round. Let's play again. Second door seemed, maybe the third door, and I'm going to stay. I guess the third door isn't as lucky as I thought. Now, this is how contestants talked, and there was all sorts of great the audience participation with people shouting out, stay, switch, and people looking bamboozled. It was great television. I'm going to do one more of these. I'm clicked on the third door and I'm going to switch. Oh, and I've lost there too. So there's no all-purpose way of winning this. I'm going to reset this counter that was happening on the right here, and I'm going to do the first part of this question. So let me remind you of what it was. So it says play the game 200 times. In the first 100 games, stay with your original choice. So, and then summarize your results. So we're going to play 100 games and we're going to stay with our original choice. So I'm going to stay with my original choice. I'm going to play 100 games. I'm going to turn animation on because then I can see each game happening, and I'm going to go. Now notice that I can follow along with the games, what I've chosen, and whether I've won or lost, but I can also see a kind of very jagged looking graph starting to appear. Looks like at this point I've won 35, 33, 37% of the time. I'm kind of going up and down. Only lost 58, 57% of the time. So there's no structure that's apparent to me yet in these 100 games. We're at 40 now, 44, and I can see that the graph is kind of settling down. It's jumping around less because we're looking at a larger collection of games. In each of these games, we chose to stay, and so we're seeing what that strategy leads to. So 33%, 34%, 35, I'm up to 35%. That's bound to 34. So still a little fluctuation, but it's tending towards what I'm hoping will be representative of the true probability. This is a simulation. It's allowing us to use a computer in a very graphical way, showing us cars and goats and allowing us to stay and switch. You're welcome to play more games than this. You're welcome to do them on your own instead of having the computer do it for you. It looks like I won 32% of the time when I chose to stay. So let's go back and record that result. So it says summarize your result. When the contestant stayed with their original choice, what was the probability of winning? And for us it was 32%. We're now going to play the game again, and now we're going to switch. So let's go back and let us reset this. Let's change the strategy from staying to switching. We can turn animation off and it'll go a little bit faster. It's less interesting except looking at the graph. So notice that very quickly we race out to winning 62% of the time. Now notice that that was really fast. So let's do some more. Let's go out to 1,000 and see what ends up happening if my 65% stays about right. Oh, we'll end up to 68 for a little bit, 67, 66, so down to 64 for a little bit. It is bouncing around, but it's certainly stabilizing somewhere between 65 and 67%. 66%, I'm going to go with that number for 1,100 trials. We could do another 900 relatively quickly, and it would stabilize even more so. You can see that graph was very jagged at the beginning, and then it stabilized as we used the law of large numbers to see the trend in this strategy of switching. I like this. 66% of the time. Let's go back and record that. So what was the strategy, or what was the probability of winning when we switched? 66% of the time. Now let's look at this in a more abstract setting. So on the next page, notice that we have one of these tables that's wrong. And before you say, oh, he's ragging on students, there's a fascinating history of the problem here, the let's make a deal problem. And that is that it was presented in a newspaper column by Marilyn de Savant, I think is her name. She's also written a book about this, partly because lots of people with PhDs wrote into her and told her she was wrong. So this is what they were thinking. So when you read student, this error, this fallacy was fallen into by a lot of people. Now I'm presenting this in a way that it's kind of hard to believe that anyone could think it was 1/2 when we did 1,100 games and we switched each time. We did well better than 50%. That would be a chance of 1/2. But people do, and here's why. It's easy to believe that the moment that third door is opened and you can see that there's no prize behind it, clearly the probability that there is a prize behind that door is 0. I mean, that is obvious and that is true. The problem is assuming that that changes the probability of the original choice and the choice, the other unopened door that the host gives you a choice to switch to. And lots of people will say that once that third door is open and there's only 2 doors left, the probabilities change from a third behind each door to a half behind each door. Now this is easy to see why this is wrong, especially since we've done the Socratic model on the previous page with the website. It's easy to see it's wrong because the prize had an equal chance of being behind each of the 3 doors. An equal chance means that, exactly what you'd think, the probability that it was behind any particular door, or the door that you chose, is 1/3. So each door initially has a 1/3 chance of concealing the prize. The door was opened with the knowledge of where the prize was. Now what that means is it wasn't a randomly opened door. This is conditional knowledge. It's based on, in other words, when the host opens a door, the host knows where the prize is. That's not a randomly opened door. So it is conditional on knowing that the prize is not behind the open door. It's easy to say why the probabilities don't change from 1/2 to 1/3. They have no way of knowing that. There's no information created there. But I think it's more interesting to say, well, what would be right? So let's talk about that. So another way to think about this is to consider the probability that the prize is not behind the door you've chosen. Now, you're hoping, and you've got a 1/3 chance that it is behind the door you've chosen. But what is the probability that it is not behind the door you've chosen? Well, again, all 3 doors are closed. The probability that you've not chosen the prize is 2/3. So let's focus on the idea that the prize is not behind the door you've chosen. And let's follow that through. So the probability that the prize is not behind the door you've chosen is 2/3. Then a door is open. And that probability has not changed. In other words, there's still a 2/3 chance that it's not behind the door you've chosen. There is still a 2/3 chance that you have chosen the wrong door. Thus, the remaining door has a 2/3 chance of concealing the prize. And when you look at it that way, it becomes kind of obvious. Probabilities don't change. So instead, we're going to focus on that, and we're going to say, let's make a table and let's show what happened here. So initially, let's look at the individual probabilities that it's behind a door at random. So before we make a choice, before the host opens anything, what's the probability that it's behind one of the 3 doors? So clearly 1/3, randomly chosen, hopefully, maybe using something as simple as a 6-sided die. A 1 and a 2 goes behind door number 1. A 3 and a 4 goes behind door number 2. A 5 and a 6 goes behind door number 3. Something as simple as that, but as close to random as we can get, so that the probability really is equal and 1/3 for both. Now the host says, well, you chose door number 1, but it's a good thing you didn't choose door number 3 because there's no prize behind it. And it's true that there is no prize behind door number 3, but it is still the case that the probability that the prize is behind door number 1 is still 1/3. So the probability that's behind one of the other 2 doors, 2 or 3, is 2/3. And you might say, well, no one's going to choose door number 3 at this point. We've been told that it is not behind that door. And you're correct. So there must be a 2/3 remaining chance that it's behind the other door, which is a nice way to follow that through. So next time you're on a game show, and in a situation like this, I would definitely recommend that you switch doors. So I'll be in the audience going, switch, switch, switch doors. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. Have a great one.